Hello everyone, and welcome back to our discussion of the tragedy of Julius Caesar. Today we're going to finish up Act 2, Scene 1. So again, we're still in that first scene of Act 2. So we're still in Brutus's orchard home, but now, instead of just being confined to Brutus and the conspirators and what they're thinking and plotting, we also get to see insight into Portia, Brutus's wife. And we're also going to see the culmination of the end of the last video, where we see Brutus urging Metellus to have Caius Ligarius come to him so that he can also bring him into the folds of the conspiracy. Boy, Lucius, fast asleep? It is no matter. Enjoy the honey-heavy dew of slumber. Thou hast no figures nor no fantasies, which busy care draws in the brains of men. Therefore thou sleepst so sound. Enter Portia, Brutus's wife. Brutus, my lord. Portia, what mean you? Wherefore rise you now? It is not for your health thus to commit your weak condition to the raw cold morning. Nor for yours neither. You have ungently, Brutus, stole from my bed. And yesternight at supper you suddenly arose and walked about, musing and sighing with your arms across, and when I asked you what the matter was, you stared upon me with ungentle looks. I urged you further. Then you scratched your head, and too impatiently stamped with your foot. Yet I insisted, yet you answered not, but with an angry wafture of your hand gave sign for me to leave you. So I did, fearing to strengthen that impatience which seemed too much enkindled, and withal hoping it was but an effect of humour, which sometime hath his hour with every man. It will not let you eat, nor talk, nor sleep, and could it work so much upon your shape, as it hath much prevailed on your condition, I should not know you, Brutus. Dear my lord, make me acquainted with your cause of grief. I am not well in health, and that is all. Brutus is wise, and, were he not in health, he would embrace the means to come by it. Why, so I do. Good Portia, go to bed. Is Brutus sick? And is it physical to walk unbraced and suck up the humours of the dank morning? What, is Brutus sick? And will he steal out of his wholesome bed to dare the vile contagion of the night, and tempt the roomy and unpurged air, to add unto his sickness? No, my Brutus. You have some sick offence within your mind, which by the right and virtue of my place I ought to know of, and upon my knees I charm you, by my once commended beauty, by all your vows of love, and that great vow which did incorporate and make us one, that you unfold to me, yourself, your half. Why are you heavy, and what men to-night have had resort to you? For here have been some 6 or 7, who did hide their faces, even from darkness. Kneel not, gentle Portia. I should not need if you were gentle, Brutus. Within the bond of marriage, tell me, Brutus, is it accepted I should know no secrets that appertain to you? Am I yourself but, as it were, in sort or limitation? To keep with you at meals, comfort your bed, and talk to you sometimes? Dwell I but in the suburbs of your good pleasure? If it be no more, Portia is Brutus's harlot, not his wife. You are my true and honourable wife, as dear to me as are the ruddy drops that visit my sad heart. If this were true, then should I know this secret. I grant I am a woman, but withal a woman that Lord Brutus took to wife. I grant that I am a woman, but withal a woman well reputed, Cato's daughter. Think you I am no stronger than my sex, being so fathered and so husbanded? Tell me your counsels, I will not disclose them. I have made strong proof of my constancy, giving myself a voluntary wound here, in the thigh. Can I bear that with patience, and not my husband's secrets? O ye gods, render me worthy of this noble wife. Knocking within. Hark, hark, one knocks. Portia, go in a while, and by thy bosom shall partake the secrets of my heart. All my engagements I will construe to thee. all the character of my sad brows. Leave me with haste. Exit Portia. Lucius, who's that knocks? Re-answer Lucius with Caius Ligarius. Here is a sick man that would speak with you. Caius Ligarius, that Metellus spake of. Boy, stand aside. Caius Ligarius, how? Vouchsafe good morrow with a feeble tongue. Oh, what a time you have chose out, brave Caius, to wear a kerchief. Would you were not sick. I am not sick, if Brutus have in hand any exploit worthy the name of honour. Such an exploit have I in hand, Ligarius, had you a healthful ear to hear of it. By all the gods that Romans bow before, I here discard my sickness. Soul of Rome, brave son, derived from honourable loins, thou like an exorcist hast conjured up my mortified spirit. Now bid me run, and I will strive with things impossible, yea, get the better of them. What's to do? A piece of work that will make sick men whole. But are not some whole that we must make sick? That must we also. What it is, my Caius, I shall unfold to thee as we are going to whom it must be done. Set on your foot, and with a heart new-fired I follow you, to do I know not what, but it sufficeth that Brutus leads me on. Thunder. Follow me then. Exeunt. So again, we are in the pre-dawn time of the Ides of March, so things are going to start to pick up exponentially in terms of the conflict going on with our characters, and also don't forget what is going on in terms of the nature, the environment of the scene. And so the first thing that we need to be aware of here is that Brutus is still in this state of inwardly being in great turmoil, right? He has to make this decision to kill his friend Caesar. But it's not something that's solely confined to the inside, but has been so torturesome to him that it also begins to reflect on the outside, right? It's how we often deal with things ourselves internally. We try to keep them inside, but the people who know us best, right, our best friends, our parents, our siblings, they can tell that there's been an outward change. And the same is true here between Brutus and Portia. We see the first thing here that Brutus is going to talk about, right, is again he tries to call Lucius awake to come to him, and he realizes he's still asleep, and that it's Brutus himself who is not able to sleep, right, because of this inner turmoil. And all of a sudden, right, Portia comes to see him, and here we have Brutus asking, "Wherefore rise you now?" This word "wherefore" meaning why. So Brutus asking Portia, "Why are you awake right now? And why are you coming out so early in the morning when the weather is very cold and not suitable for your weak condition?" Again, his reference to her condition as being a female. And so here, Portia, right, not one to sort of get trapped into Brutus's question, begins straight away to question him, right? If it's not good for me to be out, why are you out as well, Brutus? And she begins to use a couple phrases, right? The first she says is that you've ungently stolen from my bed. This idea of stolen, right, not meaning to take in terms of to take something physically, that he's left her bed. So Brutus has obviously gotten up in the middle of the night and left Portia alone. And again, she also references the fact that over the past few weeks, right, remember it's only been about a month since the ongoings in Acts 1, now in Act 2, that she has noticed a great change in Brutus, and changes that all point to this turmoil within him, right? His musings, meaning his thinking, or his sign with his arms crossed, right? Someone who's clearly not at ease. And also that she notes that Brutus has been staring at her and looking at her with these ungentle looks. And ungentle meaning unkind or ungracious. So his inner turmoil has begun to affect those around him, particularly Portia. And she goes further again, and she notes not just gentle changes in Brutus, but severe changes. And the first thing that she notes is that the actions of Brutus reveal this unsettled nature. So we already have this idea of him crossing his arms and sighing, but now impatiently stamping with his foot, right? So you can think of maybe during a test, right, when you get anxious, you just start tapping your foot on the floor or tapping your pencil on the desk, right? This same idea is showing anxiety or worry or stress. And also this angry wafture of your hand, she says, meaning this angry gesture. And in this sense, not just any gesture, but a gesture towards his wife to get her to leave. So we get this imagery, right, that Portia's been trying to comfort Brutus and to come near him all this time and to find out, right, like a good wife would, what's going on with her husband. And that Brutus has instead just angrily dismissed her. So she has great reason to be upset. And she says, in the beginning, yes, I did leave you alone. And part of the reason I left you alone, she says, is that she was afraid of this impatience that was enkindled within him, meaning that she was afraid that she would make this impatience worse, or she would inspire more of it. So that's part of why she stayed away initially, right? And also she hoped that it was simply what she says an effect of humor, or simply this mood swing, right? That she says it's not just right for women, but every man goes through this. So I thought that perhaps it was just your mood. But then she goes on and she says it was more serious than that. And she's going through all of this so that just as she got to witness this severe change in Brutus, we also get to witness it. And this goes to back up the point that Brutus is an honorable man, right? And while Cassius has been able to sleep soundly through all of this, right, Brutus, by way of his honor, has not been able to do so, right? It's not a decision that he came to easily, and it's rendered him unable to eat, oftentimes unable to speak, and as we see now, unable to sleep. And so here we also get this imagery, this greater sense of understanding of exactly how far Brutus has fallen, and also to a hyperbole, right, an exaggeration, that Portia is saying, if you had changed so much on the outside, as I've seen you change on the inside, I wouldn't be able to know you, right? It says, could it work so much upon your shape, meaning your outward form? I should not know you, Brutus. And that's a really big accusation to make against him, right? You changed so much, Brutus. And perhaps, right, he hasn't noticed it, and Portia's trying to bring this to light, in a sense, being his true mirror, right? Whereas Cassius in previous scenes has claimed that he will do that for him, we know that he's coming at that sort of offer from a dangerous place, whereas Portia really only wants what is best for Brutus. But in telling him this, Brutus lies to Portia and says that he's simply not feeling well, that he's not in good health. And we could question many reasons why Brutus decides to lie to Portia, right? Maybe one, he doesn't fully trust her. Maybe he's afraid that she will try to convince him not to do it, right? And he's already come over this great hurdle of having to make the decision, and he's afraid that Portia will try to convince him otherwise, right? Or maybe, right, he's trying to protect her, because remember, Brutus has warned all of the conspirators, if this goes poorly, it's our heads that are on the line. So if Portia doesn't know what Brutus is about to do, this act of treason, perhaps it will save her if something goes wrong. But Portia, being the ever wise woman, right? I mean, I told you about in the beginning, right? The women in this play, all two of them, right? Portia and Calpurnia, the wife of Caesar, are going to be characters who try to speak wisdom into what's going on around them, and oftentimes they are dismissed. And so here Portia shows her wisdom, right? And calls him out on his lie. If you were really sick, right, you're a smart dude. You wouldn't be out here in the beginning of the morning where you can get worse. So she's essentially telling Brutus, cut the crap, right, for lack of a better phrase. Tell me what's really going on. She's urging and begging him. And rather than giving Portia what she wants, Brutus simply, again, dismissing her, right? Go to bed. But Portia, again, ever the strong female character in terms of her love and devotion for Brutus, essentially says, I'm not going anywhere. And she continues to plead with Brutus to tell her what is truly wrong with him. And she starts, right, by again attacking his logic, right? So if you are so sick, why are you out in this air, right? In this, what she calls roomy and unpurged air. And back in Shakespeare's time, this word roomy would have meant unhealthy. Also going along with this belief, right, opposite to today, in fact, right, that going out in the early morning air would have been unhealthy for you and something that the sick should not do at any cost. And so because she knows that this is a lie made up from Brutus, she begins to pull back the layers of this and tell Brutus what she believes is going on. And she rightly pinpoints that it's not an outward sickness of the body, but rather a sickness of the mind that's changed Brutus so much, right? So again, we can, if we're describing Portia as a character, not only is she loyal, she wants to help Brutus for the sake of loving him, but she's also very wise, and she can see through what's going on in terms of Brutus's turmoil. And she goes on to say that she has the right to know because of her place, and her place being his wife. Right? This idea, even today, that vow that you make with someone, that promise or covenant, this unbreakable promise that you make, comes with it certain rights, right? One of them being the right to privileged information. In this instance, knowing what's going on and what's going on in terms of Brutus's mental state. And so she continues to use their love for one another, their marriage vows, as a way to persuade Brutus to tell her the truth. So remember, we talked about those 3 persuasive techniques in terms of ethos, logos, and pathos. And this is an example of using pathos or emotion to try to persuade someone. And here we begin to see that because she doesn't initially get the response she wants from Brutus, which is the truth, her persuasion is going to become stronger and stronger in this section. And we also begin to see through the words of Brutus this reminder that Portia is saying this on her knees. So she's begging and pleading and crying with Brutus, tell me what's wrong. So if we begin to talk about their relationship, at least from Portia's side up until now, we can fully, without a question, say that she loves him with all of her heart. She's on her knees, this physical sort of positioning of I submit myself to you in order to know what's wrong. And so she goes on to say, right, I wouldn't have to be on my knees pleading with you, Brutus, if you would just tell me what's wrong, right? And she asks him a series of rhetorical questions here. And the first, right, is it accepted I should know no secrets that appertain to you? So, meaning, is it sort of understandable, right, that me being your wife, I shouldn't know your secrets, right? And the second one, am I yourself, but as it were in sort or limitation? Meaning, am I your true wife, or do I only get access to certain parts of you? Right? And the next sort of rhetorical question she goes on to say here, right? Is it just that you want me to comfort you in bed? Just to sit and eat meals with you and talk to you sometimes? And then she just packs this whammy of an emotional blow to Brutus in these underlined portions. And this is strong use of figurative language here. And we're going to break it down. She says, dwell I but in the suburbs of your good pleasure. Meaning, right, a suburb is, for instance, think of Beirut, right? Beirut in its innermost parts, right? We refer to that as the city. But if you go to the outer lying areas, sort of outside of the inner parts of Beirut, we would call those the suburbs, meaning the outer dwelling areas. So not in the inner city, but sort of in the outskirts. So she's asking, right, do I live in sort of the outskirts of your love? And then she says, if that's true, if that's where you place me, right, because you clearly don't trust me, right, so I'm not in your inner circle, you've cast me out, then I am not your wife, I'm your harlot, meaning that I am your mistress, I'm your prostitute. And this is very strong language that she's using here, and she's using it to wake up Brutus, right? And we see in the very next lines that it works. And we need to imagine Brutus here being heartbroken that Portia sees herself this way. He says, you are my true and honorable wife. Meaning, you're not just some mistress, you're not a prostitute that I go to. You should have access to every part of me And he says that you are as dear to me as the ruddy drops that visit my sad heart, meaning that you are as important to me as the blood that runs through my veins, right? Think of that imagery there. Without you, right, it would be like my body not having the blood it needs, right? I wouldn't have life. And so now we fully come to see the picture of Brutus's depth of love for Portia too, right? She's successfully broken down the barrier that Brutus had put up by calling into question his view of her. And so really, this is a beautiful relationship that we see between these two characters, that they love each other and that they would do anything for one another. And we see here, right, that Portia, beginning to see how she's broken down these initial walls of Brutus, she goes a step further. And she says, if that were true, then I should know this secret. So tell me what's going on. And in these next lines, she's going to start to use a number of persuasive techniques that we've already seen in the play, so rhetorical devices. And the first that she's going to use is repetition with that boxed phrase here. I grant I am a woman, but withal. And so she's going to repeat that. And remember, when we're talking about ancient Rome, and also, unfortunately, in Shakespeare's day, women were treated as the weaker of the sexes, meaning that because of their gender, they were not as strong, not as powerful. And so when we see Portia addressing this, she's doing so to kind of get ahead of the curve, right? I know that I am a woman, and as a woman in this time, I am seen as less, right? But I am a woman that Lord Brutus took to wife. Meaning, yes, I am a woman, but I'm the woman that you, Brutus, chose. So that needs to stand for something. And again, we're going to see that she continues to do this here, this use of repetition, right? I grant that I am a woman, but withal. And now instead of saying that I am the woman you chose, Brutus, I am a woman well reputed or well respected, Cato's daughter. So again, making reference to her father, another male figure in her life, to show that she should not be viewed as some weak character just because of her gender, right? And although this is a powerful point that she makes, we also can analyze it more in depth, right? So she, in a sense, although she tries to jump outside of these gender roles that trap her down, also how she needs to define herself in life are by the men that surround her, right? In this way to sort of show that I have this physical strength, right? Look at who my husband is. Look at who my father is, right? How can I be any less of a person? And again, she also continues to make use of rhetorical questions to get Brutus to agree to open up, right? And she does also one more strange thing. Hopefully you guys have picked up on this. If not, it's a rather interesting thing to point out, right? As if being the wife of Brutus were not enough. As if being the daughter of a famed Roman noble were not enough. She also seeks to prove to Brutus that she can keep his secrets by stabbing herself in the thigh. Okay, it's just one of those things that happen in Shakespearean plays that you just gotta go with sometimes. But all laughing aside, right, she's going to the extremes to prove her love for Brutus and that she can be trusted. Here she says that I have made strong proof of my constancy or my strength, right? Remember, as a woman, she has to fight against this image of a woman as being weak. And she's done that by voluntarily stabbing herself in the thigh. And she says, if I can bear this sort of pain, right? I mean, getting a paper cut is bad enough, guys. Imagine stabbing yourself in the thigh. If she can handle that, then she's saying, I can handle whatever secret you would throw at me. And this is enough to convince Brutus to really give up his secrets. And so he promises to tell her, but this moment is sort of pushed off until later because we hear this knocking coming at the door. Remember, we're still waiting for Caius Ligarius to show up. But we see this sort of reconciling of this couple, these two people, and a future promise that Brutus will begin to share what's going on with him. So again, we have Caius Ligarius show up, the potential member of the conspiracy. And in the beginning, we get many references from all three characters present, Lucius, Brutus, and Caius, that Caius is sick. So he's come to Brutus in the very early morning, right? This time that Portia and Brutus have already agreed it's not good for sick people to be out in. So obviously he has this great trust of Brutus, right? If it's important, I will come no matter what state I'm in, right? And we see Brutus ask Caius how, and this is just a truncated or shortened version of how are you? And this is where Caius again confirms that he is sick, but again, pointing to the depth of the way that he views Brutus. He says, I am not sick. If Brutus have in hand any exploit worthy of the name of honor, meaning my sickness, right, is nothing in comparison to whatever plot or whatever thing you, Brutus, have going on, right? Because if it is coming from you, Brutus, it is coming in the name of honor. So again, we're always reminded by Shakespeare that Brutus is a character of honor, right? Recall that the conspirators in the beginning, this is why they need Brutus, because of his honor. And we see it playing out here too, that Caius is willing to hear anything that Brutus says, even in the midst of his sickness, because of how much he respects Brutus. And we see this here, right? He says, I discard my sickness. And he calls Brutus the soul of Rome. And you'll recall from our unit on poetry when we did The Raven that we have a literary device known as epithet. And that's where we describe a person, a place, or an object with a certain descriptive phrase. And oftentimes, rather than saying that person's name, for example, we use that phrase instead. So when Caius is saying soul of Rome, he's referring to Brutus, but he does this to show us, the audience, right, that this is the status that Brutus has. He's highly revered and respected in Rome. This is going to be something that the conspirators are going to make use of, and Brutus himself, to prove that they needed to take care of Caesar. So here again, Caius continues, and here making use of simile to show how much confidence he has in Brutus. And he says, like an exorcist, you, Brutus, have conjured up my mortified spirits. You've changed me, right? I will do your bidding. And he goes even further, right? I will strive with things impossible, meaning I will battle with things that I cannot handle. And he says, not just that, but I'll get the better of them, meaning I will overcome them. This is how much Brutus inspires them, right? So we need to be getting this image of Brutus, right? Not just as this character who, yes, has his flaws, right? As a tragic hero, he needs to have them, but he also has astounding character, another aspect that we need in terms of a tragic hero. And again, here Brutus and Caius go through this exchange back and forth, sort of alluding to one another, but never saying the words aloud yet, that the deed that Brutus needs to tell him about, the exploit, the piece of work he plans, is the murdering of Caesar, right? And we see this by this reference of, aren't there some whole that we need to make sick? And again, Brutus sort of agrees, and he says, yes, this is what I'm planning to do. And he promises, just as he promised Portia, that I will explain to you everything that's going on. And here we see that Caius trusts Brutus so much that he's willing to follow him anywhere. Even at this moment, he doesn't realize fully. He might have some sort of guess, but he doesn't know exactly what Brutus is up to. But he chooses to follow him anyway. Again, speaking to the depth of honor that exists within Brutus. This is going to be it for video number 27. So we have officially finished Act 2, Scene 1. So in our video for next time, we're going to continue with Act 2, Scene 2. And we're going to jump back to Caesar in that scene since our other main character has sort of been MIA for a while. So because we have finished this scene, though, Scene 1, I'm going to post your worksheet for Act 2, Scene 1 on Google Classroom along with this video. Please make sure that you complete it by midnight on Monday, May 18th, and upload that for me on Google Classroom. I know some people have been having issues with uploading assignments. If that's you, just feel free to go ahead and email me your assignment instead, and just write somewhere in your comments to me that that's what you've done. Okay? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.